Now, if Trump wants him imprisoned, he says, I'd rather be killed in a shootout. They're not coming for me. He says, I'll die right here on my effing house. I'm not going to be in some apprentice effing military tribunal. No one gives you a reason. It's pretty obvious. This is what the Democrats do to people. They don't care about anyone. As I left for the night, Fanone said he plans to return to the Capitol to hurl his medals back at it. Oh, take that, Nancy. Former January 6th cop Michael Fanone not having a good time with Trump's victory, unhappy about it, and has run off into the wilderness and is apparently drinking a lot of beer and saying, you better effing arm yourselves now because Trump has won. And Fanone is an interesting character because he was certainly there, according to the official story, and there's video footage of him being injured and tased in the neck and all these things. There's more complications because he was off duty responding to a call. And I read Stephen Sun, the former Capitol Hill chief of police's book about this, and he references Fanone as coming in and being injured and being more in alignment with terrorism that day. And so you have some sympathy and some compassion for him in that regard. Simultaneously, he's also come out and, in my opinion, exploit a situation without ever actually looking at the true causes of it, and has just doubled down on one narrative against a person that he was already predisposed to liking and extrapolated and exploited a situation to use as a political cudgel against his opponent, which of course is reprehensible. Here's the story. He's in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The date is November 5th. Trump has just been declared the 47th president of the United States of America. Michael Fanone leaped off the couch, lumbered towards his fridge, retrieving his fifth or sixth, maybe, beer. He glanced at the TV, took a sip of his Sapporo, and offered his first thought on the second Trump presidency, saying, you better effing arm yourselves. His tone was somehow both furious and serene. He saw this coming, he said. And on Tuesday night, some in America were starting to arrive at a place he'd already been living in for the past 46 months. He says, I didn't vote for this MFer, and I fought tooth and nail to prevent this day from effing coming. This reporter's like, holy crap. He'd learned about more than 300, quote, deep state enemies that Trump's self-described Secretary of Retribution had compiled. It's good. I'd like to read that list, see who's on it. Fanone says he saw his name on it. Now, if Trump wants him imprisoned, he says, I'd rather be killed in a shootout. They're not coming for me. He says, I'll die right here on my effing house. I'm not going to be in some apprentice effing military tribunal. Fanone insists that he's not some prepper weirdo. No, he's just someone who understands how law enforcement can be weaponized against people. See, we're getting a lot of self-realization after this election. I mean, Democrats are asking questions about missing votes now. Where'd all those where'd 18 million votes go? All over X today. Hilarious. We should be asking questions. We totally encourage it. We welcome our lefty friends. Yes, investigate your elections. Look into them. Yes, maybe you were rigged. Maybe it was rigged. Investigate, because you're not going to like what you find. You're going to realize just how deep the rigging goes. So yeah, he's realizing, yeah, law enforcement can be weaponized against people, and I hope he realizes he was a tool. He's going to realize soon. And I fully expect that to happen. Now, you were a part of it, man. Fanone, 44, has spent the past few years trying to tell people about what it was like to defend the Capitol, how he joined the officers in an underground tunnel, used his body as a shield, how he'd been stripped of his badge, his radio, his ammunition, and his gun, which rioters, he said, threatened to kill me with. Said, I've got kids. He was tasered, and I have seen video on it, and eventually pummeled unconscious, woke up in a hospital, learned he had a heart attack, a concussion, and traumatic brain injury, right? And there's questions about that, about how he got there and all the things. Now, he testified before the House committee investigating J6, as we saw, and he was a big part of that entourage. They had like the Spice Girls, which was Alyssa Farah and Clavicle Girl, and the other one that nobody can remember. And then the Spice Bros, which were the four bros. Looked like an Avengers movie. They were almost even like ethnically diverse, right? Remember, they had like the Latino guy, the white guy, the black guy, and Fanone. Remember that? Really nice. Like, well, we're gonna need a white guy in here for sure. Well, but bring him in. We need two of them. He'd written a book called Hold the Line, The Insurrection, right? And so they were really puffing him up after this. He'd toured the country. He'd received a congressional gold medal from Nancy Pelosi. They were exploiting him. They said, history will remember for your names and actions. Watch this. Whatever. As Pennsylvania shifted towards Trump, it all now seemed like a waste of time, he says. Those are hours, days, weeks of my life that I'll never get back. He says, I would have better spent them effing watching pornography? Michael, not good for your brain, brother. Bad for you. Fanone had concluded, long before a single vote had been cast in the general election, that what unfolded at the Capitol that day hadn't been some grand MAGA finale, but it was just the effing beginning, he says. Hold fast, he got tatted up. Fanone did not want to watch election returns with me, says this reporter. He says, I don't have anything good to say about anybody. He explained over the phone. He says, I'm bitter. I'm angry. I feel like my country betrayed me. This was last week. Election hadn't even even happened yet. Then he reluctantly agreed, but nearly backed out when the Washington Post declined to endorse a candidate. He spent a good day of Tuesday evening railing against Jeff Bezos. Fanone's house is on the peak of a Blue Ridge mountain at the top of a zigzag of steep grades. He'd moved in a year ago after trading his one-bedroom apartment in for 50 miles of space between himself and the Capitol. His dog steps down to greet me, and there's a poster of him on the wall of his book called The Aftermath. So he tuned his television to NBC, sank into the couch, he had his beer in his hand. He said he's had 7 traumatic brain injuries. Wow. All sustained during his 20 years on the force, and acknowledged it wasn't a good idea to drink. Okay, this dude is totally broken. He's had 7 traumatic brain injuries in addition to the one that he's claiming he got on January 6th. So that was his 7th. He had 6 more before, and he's drinking. A friend of mine told me you're supposed to pick something you love, he said, and let it kill you. Wow. Fanone looks like the same he did when he testified at the Capitol. Silver-haired, bearded, brawny. On Tuesday, he wore a dark green t-shirt. He'd left the police force not long ago after he testified to Congress. Then he worked on the book and traveled with, quote, Courage for America, which was an organization that was founded in the aftermath of the insurrection that aims to prevent another one. When he came back, he tried to get a job at Walmart, at Costco, at Cabela's. Nothing came through, right? Guy's totally used up. They exploited him and used him up, throwing him in a gutter. Now he's drinking himself to death with 7 brain injuries in a mountain, ranting about Trump. No one gives you a reason. It's pretty obvious. This is what the Democrats do to people. They don't care about anyone. He said, alluding to his belief that half the country thinks he's a traitor. He now runs his own private security business. He'd also had a contract with CNN that expired last year, but it wasn't renewed. Remember? Fined by Fanone. He'd hoped the platform would help him lead a conversation about policing in America. Instead, he was livid at the news organization for allowing contributors and guests to, quote, espouse conspiracy theories and BS in the name of access. He was so outraged over CNN's decision to hold a town hall with Trump that he wrote in the Rolling Stone an op-ed about it. The headline, he says, CNN is hosting a town hall for the guy who tried to get me killed. And guess what happened after he published that? He was never again asked to appear on the network, because that's how they operate. Like, you're only useful to them as long as you're useful to them. If you step out of line, you're dead. Your contract's done. He got a pair of tattoos across the top of his hand. He says, I'll take the money, but these fools don't own me. Good, yeah, take their money. The media stopped calling. So did the politicians who'd once raced to take his photo with him, right? They were all calling him a hero. They all offered to help him find the best healthcare. We'll help you, Michael. When Fanone followed up on that, when he called people, can you help me get healthcare? My brain is damaged. Crickets, they said. He can't forgive Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer for attending the Al Smith dinner alongside Trump. He says, how the F do you go there and lend credibility to Trump, then say this man is an existential threat to our effing democracy? He's right. This is a good point. Of politicians, how do they say that? They should just all realize, including Fanone, that they've been brainwashed. Of politicians left and right, Fanone said, F all of them. Only 2 escape his condemnation. He loves Pelosi and Liz Cheney. All right. So he never heard from the Harris campaign about being a surrogate, even though 3 other officers he testified with went to swing states. He did one event for Biden. He called Trump an authoritarian. He hung out with Robert De Niro, who lost his mind, totally diminished his entire career by being a lefty psychopath. Could you imagine? You work for like 40 years to become this Hollywood icon, and at the end of your career, you're out standing on a street corner ranting about fascism. After all of it. Amazing. Fanone had met De Niro through Sean Penn, and yeah, it's how it works, man. The loving left just took this dude, put him through the grinder, and now around 9 p.m., he got a 3rd Sapporo. His dog fell asleep. NBC cut to a graphic talking about abortion rights. He has 4 daughters. He worries about their abortion rights. Says if democracy's not at the forefront, you don't deserve the effing freedoms. A lot of F-bombs in this conversation. Very angry at Merrick Garland. He says, you should have prosecuted Trump a long time ago. And so, guys, just off the rails. He says, we can't say in all honesty, this is not who we are. He says, we are violent. We are hate-filled. We are self-centered. Gesturing his beer towards the television. This reporter left. He's like, I gotta get the hell out of here. As I left for the night, Fanone said he plans to return to the Capitol to hurl his medals back at it. Oh, take that, Nancy. So the dude has just been ground to bits. Thank you, Democrats. The same people who were parading him around on the media circuits as a hero. They say, we'll get you the best healthcare in the world. Hey, can you follow up on that, Chuck Schumer? Nothing. Crickets. Totally gone. Thanks for nothing.